Well, hello, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of eCommerce Uncensored by Fast Forward Unlimited. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. We're going to start doing some bi-weekly. No, that's not right. 2 podcasts a week. Bi-weekly would be every other week, right?
Correct.
So we're going to try to do 2 podcasts a week. Now, this special edition kind of podcast is going to be more of a Q&A. So we brought in our buddy Paul Chu.
What's going on?
We've had Paul Chu on a few times with the podcast, more towards the beginning. So if you want to learn more about him, please check out some of our earlier podcasts. And as always, I'm with the one and only.
What's up?
Say your name.
Jason.
Jason Caruso.
Jason Caruso.
So what we decided to do was to kind of dig around and find some e-commerce / well, actually had Paul go and dig around and find some web marketing, e-commerce type questions online. And he's pretty much just going to spring them on us now and see. We haven't talked about it. We haven't discussed it. So we're just going to answer them off the cuff and see how it goes. So take it away, Paul.
All right. So, yeah, Kev had me just search for some maybe common or maybe tricky questions that a lot of people have online. So I went on Quora. That's how you
That's how you say it.
So, yeah, I was browsing around there a lot and trying to find some good stuff for them. So, you know what? We'll just kick into the first one. This one might be a little hard, and it's very serious. But if you bottle-fed a baby wolf from its birth, its entire life, could you build a trustworthy relationship? No, I'm just kidding.
That's a very interesting question, Paul.
Quora's a very interesting website, and I stumbled upon some ridiculous questions, so I figured I'd just mess with you guys.
Yeah, if you want to laugh every once in a while, sign up for Quora. You'll get these really random newsletters from them that with some of the most ridiculous questions. But yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's entertaining.
Stop putting people down. Those are real questions.
We don't have enough time to go into any baby wolves.
No wolf pets, but you know
that's time for another show.
Yeah, we'll do that another week. All right. So on a serious note, question number 1 is what should be included in a welcome email, and why do e-commerce businesses need it?
Ooh,
that's your favorite.
I like that one. So that's a good question. And I don't think that there's any one answer to the question either. I mean, there definitely is. There's definitely a strategy that we like to use, and Ryan Dice calls it indoctrination. And basically, what that means is that you indoctrinate people into who you are, what your business does, and that sort of thing. But we kind of play around with this. I think that it depends on the company, what you're selling. Is it just for men? Is it just for women? I think that also plays a lot because it's going to depend on how you talk to people and what you're going to say. But an indoctrination email is a pretty good start where somebody signs up for your list or gets on your email list, and you basically tell them who you are, what you stand for, and maybe why they should be following you or what they're going to get from following you. I don't know, Kevin, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think in most cases, in the situation where someone signs up for your newsletter in one way or another, they're a cold audience, right? So they really know nothing about you at that point. So you really want to start off by kind of an introductory, like what Jason's saying, an introductory email that kind of gives a little bit more information about yourself before you just go. Because I think this is something that a lot of companies do wrong. Right? Someone signs up and they immediately get, buy my shit, right?
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend, again, excuse me, we talked about like email segmentation, and I think it would depend on really where people come into your list, because if they're coming in through an offer, so let's say, I save 20% if you get on my email list, that email may look a little different. Maybe that email is going to say, hey, thanks for joining our list. We are eCommerce Uncensored. We help, startups and e-commerce companies grow their revenue. By the way, as promised, here's your 20% off on this product or that product. So it's really going to depend on where they come in. But if people are cold and they don't know who you are, it's a good idea to get them acclimated to you and your brand. And, depending on what you're selling, also is going to determine whether or not the email is going to be long or short. But for the most part, saying hello, how you doing? This is who we are. This is what we stand for. And oftentimes, if you can tie that, this is what we stand for into their, needs, wants, and desires, that sort of works well.
And you want to talk to them like a person, right? And I think that, go back to Ryan Dice, his book, I'm drawing a blank. What's the name of his book?
The Machine, Invisible Selling Machine.
Right. That's a great book to kind of it outlines the whole thing for you. And if you haven't already, I would definitely check that out.
But there's definitely different theories on that. Different people have different ways they like to do it. Some people like telling stories. Some people like just in doing indoctrination. I mean, I guess they're two of the same things, just the style that you use. So there's a lot of different things. I mean, if someone signs up to get a 20% off, what we'll often do is we want them to use it right now. So we'll often say hey, thanks for joining the list. If these discounts don't last long and are we tend to change them. So if you want to take advantage, if you want to save 20%, go back to the website now and buy something, whatever. But the point is, it really just depends on where they come in, and how you're going to talk to them would depend on.
Yeah, I mean, if they're expecting something like a coupon or some kind of download that you promised them for signing up, yeah, of course you got to send that in the email as well.
Right. So, yeah, good question. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm choking on this freaking incense. Are you guys? I can't breathe.
It does smell potent in here.
Yeah, right?
Next time, we got to make sure we take out the incense.
Oh, my God. I'm ready to freaking faint. Do you feel the same way?
Not at all.
I can't breathe.
It's not that bad.
Not at all.
Okay.
All right, Paulie.
All right, we'll move on to number 2.
Moving on.
Okay, question number 2 is, how do you increase open rates of emails?
All right, so this is definitely something that you want to test, right? So let's just say that. You're definitely going to want to test this, but there are different emotions that you can sort of spark to get people to open emails. And the 3 that I sort of like to use is, number 1, curiosity. Number 2 is fear of loss. And number 3 is gain. I know there are more, and other people tend to, there probably are 4 or 5 different ones, but I like to use those 3, and I sort of mix those in, right? But what you're going to want to test is, oftentimes, if you have a subject line that you're using a curiosity sort of curiosity subject line, you have to be careful, because you're going to get a lot of people opening those emails, but because you've kind of made them curious, there's a good chance that they're not going to be interested in it. So the click through, so that's another thing, that's another metric, but your click through may be lower. But again, if you're going to have to decide what the purpose of the email is. So if you just want as many people to see an offer or see something in that email, then curiosity will be good. If you're looking for a click through to the website, then curiosity may not be good, because you're kind of tricking people into opening the email. And I don't mean in a bad way, but you're kind of baiting them into opening it, which then annoys them, or kind of lets them down, so to speak. What I like to say is what's the intention of the click, right? And that's going to determine what happens afterwards. So if the intention of the click, or the open in this case, it's not quite matching up with the email, you're going to have problems with the data or what the people do. Now, you want to add something to that?
Well, I think, speaking of the open bait, as you say, curiosity type thing, we've actually seen people do it, and we've actually tried it. We've put that little the FW into the subject line, to make it look like it's a forward.
Right. So people say if you make an email look like it's forwarded, then the open rates will jump up.
Or the RE, looks like a response.
Right. So, and it works.
But it worked, like Jason's saying, it's clickbait, and the response might not be so good because you're essentially trying to trick them into just seeing something. So,
Right, so you'll see unsubscribes go up. You might see open rates go up, but unsubscribes will go up. Fear, and you can do these in different sequences too. By the way, you can do like gain. In a subject line. If that doesn't work, the next one is fear of loss. And you can play around with the different combinations of those. I find that if you sort of mix them together, you do some curiosity, but you give them some idea of what it's going to be by maybe adding gain or adding loss, it's not so bad, and it kind of softens up sort of the negative feelings. So, we in one of our previous podcasts we talked about this, like something like, you'll never guess what's in this apple pie recipe, right? Like they know it's an apple pie recipe, but you're sort of doing the curiosity thing, right? And they won't get too annoyed if they open that, because it's like, okay, I know it's about apple pie recipe, but like what's in it, So
yeah, I think it's an opportunity to just be a little playful, have fun with it, test, see what works. I mean, the things you don't want to do is like spring newsletter 2017. That's they've seen that, it's done, that's worn out. Don't do things like that. It's not gonna. People are gonna immediately just breeze over that.
Yeah, and two more things I want to add. Number one is that it's something you're gonna need to test. Right, like there are different like strategy, little techniques that you can mess with, but you're definitely gonna want to test because different audiences will respond differently, and that's one thing. The other thing is that I don't like people to be able to make the decision about the email by just reading the subject line, right? Like I want people to have to read the email to know whether or not it's going to apply to them, so to speak, if that makes sense, right? Like, if I have a food blog, an apple pie recipe, it's probably going to appeal to everybody, right? Like, if I have, let's say, a baking blog, but then I say something like, you'll never guess what I used in this, it has that curiosity, but they really can't make the decision as to, like, whether or not they want to read the email just by the subject line. So, that's something I definitely like to play with.
Yeah, right on.
So I guess you guys could say it's important to kind of get in the mindset of your audience and who you're trying to talk to then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then, how much do psychological factors affect marketing, and what are some successful psychological tactics you guys would try to incorporate into your strategies?
Ooh,
that's deep.
That is deep. I think it's all psychological.
Yeah,
quite
absolutely.
Honestly. And I think that like for example, people who are marketing on Facebook, they don't understand the psychological, space that their audience is in when they're doing that, right? Like when you're marketing to people on Facebook, like they're not there shopping, right? They're not there, to buy your stuff, right? Like whereas if they're on Amazon, they're there to shop. I mean, their intent is much different depending on what platform they're on. Now, you can kind of break that, right? Like you can break that pattern by putting something in front of them that is so irresistible that they have no choice but to take you up on it. But for the most part, you have to understand that your audience is not really on Facebook to shop. So that is definitely a really important part on the psychological side of things. Also, who you're marketing to. We talk about this a lot internally here. Like, when you're marketing to women, it's a different sell than when you're marketing to men, right? And it's a totally psychological thing where, like, I say this a lot, but if you can sell, like, sex and money to men, they buy, right? Like, that's it. That's all that matters to them.
Yeah.
Sex and money. And it's true when you talk to women, it's a much different thing. Like, they want to make sure that other people are buying it. They don't want to look like a fool. There's a much more emotional aspect to a woman or female buying. So the psychological, that's all psychological.
Yeah, I think it all is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Open rates, social media marketing, whatever. I think it's all comes out of psychology.
Yeah, it goes back to your email, what you were just talking about. It's like capturing them and trying to gain their attention based on how they're feeling at that moment to get them to open and do an action. It's all about that at the time, whenever you happen to come across them in your sales funnel.
Yeah, and I'll give you one example that, I don't really know. I think I heard this from Russell Brunson, but I know a lot of other people have copied it, and it's pretty interesting, but if you're trying to introduce something to someone that, like, maybe they've been struggling with or they have a problem with, and you say something like, buy this thing even if you don't have this, or even, like, I'm going to use our mud mask client. Buy this mud mask even if you have sensitive skin, right? Like, because they're saying to themselves, like, I can't put a mud mask on, but you kind of answered that with the even if statement. That's something that I learned from Russell. So yeah,
it goes back to you're solving the problem with your product and you're saying it in your headline.
Right. So I think it's all psychological.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Is that all you got for us, buddy?
So we have 3.
Yeah, that's all I got. We'll keep it at 3. Keep it short and sweet, and I'll come up with some challenging ones next time.
Those
were great. Those are spot on. Those are great questions. I mean, we're going to try to do this every week the best we can. Put 2 podcasts out a week. This has been... Anything else to add, guys?
No.
Okay, all good. This has been episode...
Wait. If anybody knows... if you could build a trustworthy relationship with a baby wolf if you bottle feed it from birth, let us know. Reach out to us. We want to figure that out.
Nice, Paul. Hey, it's great to have you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's fun.
It's exclusive marketing podcast, so these guys are being
exclusive.
Being nice.
Thanks
to
for
me.
having us. Got somebody else.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Paul. Anyway, this has been episode 33 of eCommerce Uncensored. You could check us out, all the podcast notes, at ecommerceuncensored.com, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Later.
Bye.